Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the weekly Tottenham news review. I'm Leader Dorset Spur and I'm here to talk to you about all the different things that have happened over the last 7 days and give you my opinion on those. And this is my opinion. You don't have to agree with me, just to be clear. Happy to have your comments and your views in the comment section. Let me know whether I've got it totally wrong or whether you think I'm on the right track of how I'm feeling about being a Spurs fan at the moment. So anyway, a few things to talk about. Of course, we cannot ignore the fact that yet again, Tottenham have been defeated in the Premier League. That is 18 defeats so far this season. And I've got to be honest with you, looking at the league, the games left to play, I'm not sure where we get our next win from. I'm not sure how we are going to turn this around and add to this tally to stop this being the worst Premier League season we've ever had. It's a bit mind-boggling. Of course, this weekend we're up at Anfield against Liverpool. A terrible record there. We very rarely get anything out of the games. And of course, all they need is 1 point to be league champions. And relegate Arsenal back to second place yet again, bottling it yet again. So, yeah, very, very difficult period for being a Spurs fan for sure. A season that I'm sure most of us will hope to be over fairly soon. With the only shining light still being the fact that we're in the Europa League, and fingers crossed a miracle happens and we manage to actually win that trophy and get that trophy monkey off our back and give us something maybe to build on next season, because of course that means Champions League football. So all could not be lost, albeit the Premier League is an absolutely terrible place to be at this moment in time. So of course, losing to Forest, not a shock, to be fair. I think they've played really well this season. They've ground out results where they've needed to. They've done exactly what they needed to do to maintain their position. Everyone thought they were going to just slide down the table, a little bit like Leicester when they won the league that year. Everyone thought they were going to crumble and fall away, and they haven't. They've stuck in there and they've done really, really well. Me personally, growing up in the sort of 70s and 80s, you know, Forest were probably the first team I can kind of think about, you know, winning the European Cup and all the rest of it, and the excitement around that. You know, Brian Clough being the manager with Peter Taylor, and you know, the first £1 million footballer in Trevor Francis and all that kind of jazz. So quite a big history, that team and that club, and they deserve some credit for what they're doing. Nuno has done a brilliant job there. So it wasn't unexpected for us to lose, for sure, but of course, it's not what we want from it. And in the end, we were unlucky in the fact that we did get one back, Richarlison scoring a goal after having umpteen chances to do that. But it wasn't to be. I think someone said that we had like 16 crosses or something. We peppered their box. But of course, if they're two goals ahead in the first sort of 15 minutes, it's always going to be a mountain to climb. And again, it's all been put down to individual mistakes. How many individual mistakes can we keep making before someone says, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to fix that? Because it just feels like we're doing it all the time. And of course, now Vicario's getting called out and so on. And it just takes that cycle again of players being, you know, scrutinised. And I'm not sure that that's helpful, if I'm being honest. I genuinely do think that when things are going against you, they just keep going against you. And it's exactly the same if you look at Forest and you say, when things are going for you, they go for you. You know, things just keep working and it keeps going the right way, and you get this kind of run together that really kind of helps. So, you know, for me, I just think it's one of those things. I think we're going to have to get this season out of the way and hope that things can start to change in the future. I don't necessarily think it's the manager. I don't necessarily think it's the players. I just think it's a combination of when your luck's shit, it's shit, and it's going to continue to be that way. In the same way, when your luck's in, your luck's in. Very similar, as I just said, to the Leicester scenario, where they got every result going their way just to kind of get them there. So yeah, what else can you say about it? I don't see where we're going to get our next win from, if I'm being honest, apart from possibly Bodo Glimt in the Europa League. But in terms of the league, I think we're pretty much done. I'll be glad to see the end of the Premier League, and it looks like the spaces in the ground are growing. I couldn't make the Forest game. It was on a Monday. I couldn't make that game. Tried to sell my ticket on the exchange. No takers, and I think there was plenty of other people in the same boat. So another 60 quid down the drain of not being able to move it on. So yeah, it is what it is. It's one of those things. It's the chance you take when you have a season ticket and you can't make certain games. But that's a totally different story and a whole different video. Moving on, a couple of other things that's happened this week. Romero apparently wants to go to Spain. Not sure how I feel about that. Obviously, it would be massively, massively disappointing to lose a player of that stature, a player who on his day is unplayable, brilliant defender, good going forward and so on. But of course, he's had his issues at Tottenham for sure. Is he committed to Tottenham? Well, it doesn't feel like that. We've had the issues around his injuries and the fact that he always seems to be available when it comes to Argentina. That's been laid at his door, very, very often. So that's that's one part of it. I'm sure that's just coincidence. But of course, talking about going to Spain, if you're a South American person and you play and you speak Spanish and all the rest of it, there's a big Spanish culture over there, and I would expect that all of, or the majority of South American players would love to play in the Spanish league, and kind of look up to those teams, your Barcelonas and your Real Madrids, because they are massive, massive brands. I haven't seen the interview where he's kind of talked about it, so I don't know whether he's talking in general, whether he's talking as a future thing, or whether he's literally calling it out. But obviously the timing of it and the circumstances around Tottenham mean that it's not a great scenario, is it? That your key players, a player of the leadership group is talking about moving to other leagues and that sort of stuff. But it's just one of those things in modern football. I get it. Like we talked recently about Radu Dragushin's agent kind of pimping him around and stuff like that, and we see this so often, people being misquoted or talked about in a different way or whatever it might be. But ultimately the situation is that he's in contract with us unless there is a massive offer that you can't turn down and it's clear the player doesn't want to play for you. Then I think ultimately he stays. If he doesn't want to play for us, and that's clear he doesn't want to play for us, and he's not going to put the effort in and all the rest of it, then you do have to cut your losses and move on. And unfortunately, that is life. We see it all too often. You've got the situation with Trent at Liverpool. Liverpool would want to keep him. It looks like he wants to go to Madrid. What can they do to keep him? So they have to kind of let him go with no hard feelings, and that's it. It was a similar situation with Harry Kane, really. Harry wasn't going to sign another contract. He's a massive, massive asset to the club. You cannot afford to just let £100 million just walk out the door. And I think that Romero is in that bracket. From our point of view, hugely disappointing, because you want to build on your better players, your best players. But I've always maintained, my view is this: if a player doesn't want to play for my team, go. I don't want you. I want players that want to play for Tottenham, that want to make Tottenham successful, that want to win things with Tottenham. It's exactly the same with the managerial situation. One of the reasons why I was very much behind Ange was because he wanted to be there. Conte never wanted to be there, Mourinho really didn't want to be there. He just wanted to prove a point. He wanted to get back into football, prove a point. And they always felt they were bigger than the club. And I don't think you can have that. As the great Graham Roberts once says, the crest on the front is always bigger than the name on the back. And I absolutely believe that. I think it's never a truer word has been spoken, and I think that's absolutely right. So in my view, if Romero wants to go and he's not going to put the commitment in, and we get the offer, he may as well go. If on the other hand, it's just speculation and just paper talk and just lost in translation, then of course I want Romero to stay. I want him to give his best for this club, and I want to see us progress together. That kind of moves me on to before I go on to the next thing. I do want to touch on Manor Solomon. Looks like he's set to leave Spurs. Obviously playing a season in the Championship with Leeds, had a really good season. He's done really, really well, and of course has prompted lots of clubs to be interested in him. Came to us on a free transfer, got injured, unfortunately, and has never played for us since. I do genuinely believe, and this may be controversial, I don't know, but I genuinely do believe if he hadn't have been an Israeli and he hadn't been politically involved in terms of his putting his political views out there, then I don't think Tottenham would have sold him. I think he would have been part of the squad and would have continued. And I don't think he would be looking to leave this club in the summer. But because of the history of Tottenham and how Tottenham are perceived and all the rest of it, I think it's a very difficult one for the club in terms of being able to support that player with his views, which are his views, and he's right to have whatever views he wants. This is his homeland as far as he's concerned. It's his country. And he wants to support his people and say how he feels, and he has every right to do so. But of course, if that starts to impact on a company, then people will part ways with that. If your views do not correspond with the narrative that is being put out there, then quite quickly you find yourself heading out the door, shall we say. So yeah, a bit of a shame, because I think Solomon has been was a good opportunity, a good option, coming off the bench for in the times he the minutes he did put in at Tottenham. I thought he did really well and looks like he could be a decent signing. And of course he's shown that at Leeds, albeit in the Championship. So a bit of a shame that it never kind of worked out, but it is what it is, and it's one of those situations that the modern world's kind of throws up in our faces. And so I guess the final thing really that I wanted to talk about again, and you just cannot avoid it at the moment, is this constant talk about Ange Postecoglou moving on. I personally think it'll be for the best, one way or the other. I think even if he wins the Europa League, I think moving on would be the right thing for him to do, because I think he's not going to better that. I think it's gone so far now that unfortunately he's not going to find his way back with the fans and so on. He may well have the support of the club and the support of the board because of the difficulties that he's gone through this season. Because I don't think any manager has gone through the stuff that he's gone through this season. So it'll be interesting to see how it kind of pans out. But I think one way or the other, he's bound to leave at the end of this season. If he doesn't win the Europa League, then that's really disappointing for him, because it breaks his thing of always winning something in his second season. And he will be hugely disappointed that he hasn't been able to bring any kind of level of success, even if that was a case of seeing progression in the squad, progression in the team and so on. Albeit even if he didn't get Champions League, it would have been progression to have still maintained European football for next season through our league placing. We've had some good results under Ange Postecoglou. We've won some games we wasn't expected to. We've scored some high amount of goals and beaten teams comprehensively. But because of the inconsistencies, because of the constant mistakes from individual players, it's just not happened. I don't believe he's lost the dressing room. I really don't. I think the players are still behind him. But when it's not working, as I've said previously, when it's not working, it's just not working. And it just doesn't feel like it's ever going to. So for his own peace of mind, I think if he wins the Europa League, I think he should walk away. I think he should walk away and go, thanks very much. I did what I was asked to do. I've won you a trophy. I wish you well. I'll move on to bigger and better things. Because I'm sure that Ange Postecoglou will pop up in another league somewhere in Europe and so on. And I'm sure he will be successful. It's just that it's just not worked in the Premier League for him. The constant pressure from the media, the constant poking of the bear, that's translated into fans' disillusionment and fans poking him and prodding and pushing and so on. And there's only so much a man can take before they kind of lose their cool, I guess. And so I just can't see it. I can't see it ever working. Disappointing, but it is what it is. So, of course, that then brings us on to all these managers that are being touted around. Iraola is still the main man that they're talking about, although, you know, Bournemouth will be keen to keep him, and I think he's distanced himself slightly. Same with Silva at Fulham, another one who I think, you know, the club, Fulham, that is, really want to keep hold of and are likely to do whatever they can to do that. They've had a really good season by their standards, and they will want to maintain that kind of going forward. But obviously they're the first two names on the list. You've obviously got Thomas Frank and several others. And the latest one that's now been added to the list, of course, is Scott Parker, ex-player, decent fella, and so on and so forth. But come on, can we honestly think that Ange Postecoglou being replaced by Scott Parker is the answer to Tottenham's woes? Is that where we're going to go? I'll be honest, I am just uninspired by every name that's put forward. I don't see any of them being any different in terms of where they go from here, because I just feel like in 18 months' time we'll be in exactly the same position as we are now. The board are not going to change what they do. They're going to go for the same sort of player with the same sort of profile. They're going to go for young players. They're going to go for up-and-coming talent. Sell on value, all that kind of stuff to maintain, you know, the what they've got currently, which is, you know, financial stability and the ability to kind of keep turning a profit. It's not what we want. It's not what fans want. We want someone who is crazy about Tottenham to come in and be his plaything or her plaything, to rack up the medals and the trophies and pour untold money into the club and just give us that opportunity to have some glory in the same way that Chelsea fans have had glory, or Manchester City fans have had glory, Man United even in the past. But football's changing. It's getting more and more difficult. I don't think you can just come in and chuck loads and loads of money at it and have instant success. I think you can have a level of success, but I don't necessarily think you'll have instant success. I think it's becoming harder and harder. I do think the financial fair play stuff does play a part. And I think it's something we need to be aware of. If you just look at what's happened at Man United, where they're kind of laying people off left, right and centre, it's a big worry for the little man, not for the players, for the little man. The players are getting paid handsomely, and it's the little people that are losing their 20, 30, 40, 50 grand a year job, and having to start again after, you know, pledging their life to the club and so on. So I do worry about that. But as I say, from a leadership point of view, I think any person who comes in now is likely just to be in the same boat in 18 months' time, where the expectation is too high for what we're trying to do, and the shackles they're working in are too hard to be able to turn it around and really bring something. I personally like the idea of young players coming in with potential that are going to grow and develop as a team and as a squad and so on. But there are some things missing. You know, you need a level of leadership. You need a level of experience and so on that's going to carry you through. You can't expect young players to have all of that. You need to supplement them. It's like any team in any environment. You need to have a good mix to make it work. You can't have every player being a superstar. That just won't work. You need to have the journeymen, the strong people, the experience, the motivators, that sort of stuff around the club. And getting that mix right is where the difficulty lies. We need some of that experience and some of that, success to be around these players to show them what they actually need to do and what they've got in their locker to deliver that. So it's not a great time to be a Tottenham fan at all, and I don't like to be negative. I'm not a negative person. I'm very optimistic. I always expect the best to happen, but at this moment in time, it's very, very difficult to call that out. And I can only be honest and say how I'm feeling at this moment in time. It's very, very difficult to support the team when you cannot see any progression and any opportunity for us to build on it. I personally want the season to be over from a Premier League point of view as soon as possible so we can move on. I want the uncertainty about the manager to be resolved, and I want to see us do some serious business in the summer to really give us something to hang on to for the next season, because it's all about next season very soon. Like I say, let's just focus on getting this Europa League 1. If we can do that, I would take the 17th place finish. I will. I would. If you'd have asked me at the beginning of the season, will you take 17th and the Europa League, I'd have said yes. Even though how difficult that's been to stomach, I would have still said yes, because it would be great to get that one, get into the Champions League and see where that takes us from here. Anyway, look, not too much more to talk about at this moment in time that's worth kind of chatting over. So I'm going to leave it here, a little bit of a shorter one this time. But as I say, please feel free to leave your comments in the comment section. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you don't subscribe to Chris's channel, please do that. It's good to have that in your locker. You'll be able to see all the other good videos that he puts out. Puts out a lot of stuff, a lot of informative stuff with lots of other people, and it will be good to support the channel. Doesn't cost you anything, so why not do it? And as always, I'll leave you with a up the Spurs.